Welcome everybody. It's your girl Jacqify, and welcome to Jacqify's World. Today I am joined by Dawn, and I am so grateful for taking the time to come and chat with us about your career path. So I'll give you this chance to tell us about yourself. What is your current position and what company that you work with?
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to be here. My name is Dawn Kettinger. I work for the Michigan Nurses Association, which is the largest union and professional association of registered nurses in Michigan. My job right now is Government Affairs Director. So that means I oversee our advocacy programs for legislative and regulatory policies that affect nurses and patients and working people.
Oh, that is actually really interesting. Is it a Michigan-based association, or do you get to interact with other states as well?
So we're Michigan-based, but we're part of a national organization called National Nurses United. So we get to interact with them and also work on federal legislation under their umbrella as well.
Nice, perfect. What has been your career journey from all the way from undergrad to where you are right now? Could you tell us a little bit more of how you got to where you are?
Sure, yeah, it's a little convoluted. So I came out of Marquette University in Milwaukee with a bachelor's in sociology, and I worked as a social worker and a restaurant manager for a few years, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Then I figured out that I really wanted to do journalism. So I went to Michigan State University here in Michigan to get my master's in journalism. Then I worked as a journalist here in Michigan for about 9 years and sort of evolved into doing political advocacy in the Michigan House of Representatives. So from being a journalist to being a advocate, still doing communications, but advocating for democratic values, democratic policies. Then I worked in communications for a progressive organization. Now I've been at M&A for about 9 years. I started out as communications director actually here, and sort of, again, evolved into being government affairs director.
Wow, that is a lot of interesting careers along the way. It
Yes.
seems like. What does your current position entail, and is there a specific? I know you work with nurses, but even with nurses, there are different types of nurses. So, what is your specific focus area?
Sure. So most of our members are hospital nurses. Okay. So we generally advocate for them as well as public health nurses. So a lot of the issues that we deal with are short staffing, mandatory overtime, collective bargaining issues, safety in the workplace, workplace violence is a big issue as well. So sort of working with the nurses and for the nurses to advocate for policies that will help alleviate those problems and make things better for nurses and for patients.
So do you have regular meetings with the nurses, like a regular annual meeting, for example, to gather all this information and then relay to the government, or how exactly does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's a couple of councils of nurses, of our members, that I meet with regularly and take direction from them. Well, it's kind of a two-way thing. I tell them what's going on in the government so that they can kind of make decisions and guide me, so that it's really member-driven. It's not just me making the decisions. I'm trying to implement our strategy and the values of the nurses who lead the organization. So sort of, I might have meetings with them once or twice a month, meetings with legislators, still do a lot of communications work, which is nice, writing letters, testifying before committees, things like that. So it just sort of goes along with what the legislature is doing. Like right now, they're on a break for spring break. So it's a little bit slow for me, thank goodness. But they'll be back. And then we have a 2-year legislature session in Michigan, a full-time legislature, which not every state does. So that keeps me fairly busy. And then during the election season, we also work on political campaigns.
Sounds like a lot of meetings involved in your day.
It can be, yes. A lot of Zoom meetings the past year, yes.
Oh, yeah, that I can imagine. You went to Michigan State for your journalism master's degree, right? Mm-hmm. Was there a concentration in the type of journalism that you were doing? And does that translate to what you do today in the type of communication work that you get to do?
Yeah, so there wasn't a particular focus. There were some options, but I just wanted to stay general. But everything that I learned in journalism school and in my career as a journalist is still applicable to me today, and actually to many other jobs as well. So I'm really grateful for that kind of all around education, communications, writing, critical thinking, investigation, being able to make an argument, work with facts, all those things that are part of journalism still serve me today. So I find that journalism is a really well-rounded, foundation for a lot of jobs, I think.
And did you know that you wanted to remain general when you started your master's degree, or was that something that developed along the way?
No, I knew I wanted to be general. I was already working as a journalist, so I went to school part-time, so I kind of already knew what I wanted to do.
That is really interesting. I'm thinking about maybe taking some journalism classes that would really help me in pursuing my non-academic research careers, which I'm focusing on communication, so scientific communication. So I'm just always curious when I speak to someone who's already done journalism. Most of the time you have to specialize in something, and knowing that you can go through a master's and still be general, that is really encouraging.
Yeah, I remember you said maybe science journalism for yourself, and I think another part of journalism that you learn is just making things simple so people can understand it. And I think that's so useful. When I used to work at the House of Representatives too, we had policy analysts who would help us make it clear to the public, right? Because there's so much jargon and so many things that regular people don't understand. So if you can kind of be a translator, that's awesome.
So have you received any additional training since your master's, or has that been sufficient for your current role?
It's been sufficient. Working in the legislature was really, that's what I'd recommend as training for my job that I have now. So that was enough for me. Every once in a while, I might take a seminar on some legal aspects or ethical aspects of my job, but pretty much my experience was enough training for me.
Yeah, so it feels like most of your training has been like work experience. It's not like a formal, go to class, exams, and type of training. Because I was also thinking about seminars and webinars. I know they do have like online training surrounding communication and public affairs, as you said. And it's good to know that even with hands-on training, that can also give you the skills that you need. I'm curious about your day. How does it look from start to finish, from morning to evening, or in terms of weeks? How do you manage your time?
Yeah, so right now we have a big event coming up next month. So I'm doing a lot of planning for that. It's an advocacy day. So a good part of my job is connecting nurses to their legislators so they can advocate for themselves. So right now, a lot of my day is set on logistics for that. When the legislature is in session, I might go to committee hearings during the week, and I might actually go to session. I'm starting to do that a little bit more now that we're coming out of the pandemic, but did most of that via Zoom. So I monitor, that's for me to monitor legislation and see what's happening in the committee and in the session. Have meetings with other people at my job because we all sort of rely on each other and interact in terms of depending on each other. I depend on other departments, they depend on me. Doing research as well, which is another thing that journalism helped me with. And so it's a good mix of things. It can be a lot of sitting in front of the computer sometimes, but I also get to talk to legislators and get to talk to nurses, make sure that I'm on track with what I'm doing.
Before COVID, was there a lot of traveling with your job?
Not too much. I live about 20 minutes from the state capitol.
Nice.
So during the election season, I might travel more.
Sounds like a lot of meetings and coffee. That's what I get from that.
Yes. Yeah, that's pretty much a lot of it. Yeah.
Who would you term as a successful day? Do you base your success on a legislature passing or quarterly progress, or how do you term success in your field?
Well, we have a strategic plan for our organization, so I want to make sure that I'm on track with, the metrics that have been set. But I also sort of have to adjust my expectations for success because we have a very difficult political climate here in Michigan. So I'd like to be able to say, we pass lots of legislation and it's great, but sometimes success looks like maybe just making a bill not be as bad, or stopping a bill temporarily. When I'm able to communicate with a lot of lawmakers and they are doing what our organization is asking based on the policy, that's definitely a success. But a lot of success is just relationship building, which is a lot of what I do, just getting to know people, making sure they know the issues that my organization has. So building those relationships, knowing that I can call people and talk to them about our issues, that's success as well.
So where exactly do you get to meet these people? Do you have like philanthropy work that your office does, or is it through the meetings with the councils?
Meet legislators, you mean?
Meeting for example, the nurses that you serve, and even the legislators themselves. In what settings do you get to interact with the different people in your organization?
Sure, yeah. So for the councils that I work with of nurses, we meet by Zoom, and we'll probably just continue doing that because they are from all around the state. So it'll be hard to get together in person. For legislators, I usually go downtown. It's about 20 minutes from my house, and I'll meet with them in their offices. And for some, we have done Zoom. Some prefer in-person meetings. Some wore their masks, some didn't. So,
Yeah.
but it's nice to be in person to actually meet people. But that's, usually I will go to their office, or when things get back to normal, maybe we'll go have coffee somewhere downtown to be in a more casual environment.
What would you term as the aspects that you would have loved to know before getting to your current position, and the other aspects that you actually enjoy?
What I didn't expect is that I would be able to use so much of my communication skills. So I'm really happy about that. And also how rewarding it is to work with the nurses. So I really am happy about that. My hours are pretty manageable, and I feel like I have good boundaries, but I also have bosses who look out for that. And our organization is really working on work-life balance. So sometimes you have to take responsibility for doing that as well, but it helps to have an organization that's conscious of that. So every once in a while on a weekend, I might need to pitch in for communications, but other than that, I don't do weekends. And I pretty much am done by 5 unless, something, again, if something happens, I'm happy to work outside my regular hours, but fortunately that doesn't happen too often.
What advice would you give someone for like me who is trying to work my way up to working in government affairs or public relations? What are some of the skills and general advice would you give?
Well, I would say to, be willing to start, kind of at entry level with, whatever you need to start learning for the path. Consider internships, which are really good for skill building, but also relationship building. I think most of the time, most of us are finding jobs through relationships. So especially in government affairs or public relations, it's a lot about who you know and who your connections are. So I would say just meet as many people as you can, and do things like you're doing, like talk to people, in various fields, so you can kind of see whether it matches what you're interested in or not. And then I would say just kind of go for it, like follow your heart, like, the money will follow hopefully. But I think if you make decisions based on just money, you're probably not going to be happy the rest of your life.
Yeah, that is so true. Passion comes first. You mentioned something about entry level. What is the entry level position to work up to like a director of government affairs?
Well, I would say I really encourage people to work in a legislative environment if they can. That's a good place to start because then you understand how things work from the inside. but often there will be, like a coordinator position or an associate director kind of position if you're willing to, kind of take those positions and hopefully be mentored by someone above you to move up later.
So mentorship is it's key in getting the training that you would need. Oh,
Yeah, I think so.
That is a lot of information that actually is very helpful, because now I have some idea of what it means to work as a liaison between the government and, in your case, the nurses. I'm just curious, apart from maybe the in-house communications that you do, the writings, for example, the memos and writing the bills. I know that there are some associations that make infomercials, like or infographics. Do you get involved in such type of communications or no?
Yeah, we have a department that does that. And so, with my communications background, I work with them to sort of shape those things. They do it. I'm not an expert anymore at that software or, the ins and outs of it. But I think graphics are such an important way of conveying information that we definitely have to use those to supplement. And, people learn in different ways. So some people are very visual. Sometimes the graphic just shows more, it brings it home. And radio and TV ads, we have people in our organization who can do those things. So I'm happy to be able to collaborate with them and use their expertise.
Do you get a lot of engagement from all the different social media that you use to reach out to the nurses?
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of generational, I think. So we get a lot of older people on Facebook. So some people like that. It seems like our nurses don't like Twitter that much. A lot of them like Instagram, obviously. So I think we get a good amount of engagement, and it's important to try and get across all the platforms. Some people would prefer email. Some people prefer to see things on social media. So that's kind of our goal, is to reach people everywhere.
With the changing times, I feel like if it's not on social media, it didn't happen. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, these are platforms that people have attached a lot of trust in, I would say. And some of the Facebook groups, they wouldn't trust information that's there more than a website, for example. And I see that a lot of organizations trying to go that social media route. That is all the questions I had for today. I am very grateful for taking the time to come sit with us and share your knowledge that you've gotten from your very interesting career path to where you are. And I'm very grateful.
You're very welcome. It was nice chatting with you.